Welcome to a new edition of the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino. On this episode, we talk with top real estate agent Nate Riggs. He is a top agent in Jacksonville, Florida, partnered up with Someday Homes Realty. He specializes in residential listings and has a passion for educating younger generations on the benefits of home ownership and the pitfalls of consumer debt. Although real estate has always been his passion, he spent time in the U.S. Navy as an aviation search and rescue swimmer. His experiences include real estate, life as a naval aviator, career transition, and raising a family all at the same time. He's got a great story. Enjoy this interview.
What's going on, Joe? I'm doing good.
Good, man. Thank you for taking a minute out. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So before we get into your life and what's made you who you are, I am curious, especially in real estate, that's a very people-driven industry. Over the last 3 years with COVID, it's affected us all in different ways. How did you survive that pandemic, and how has it changed the way that you conduct business now that the world's opening up?
Yeah, that's crazy. So I'm in Jacksonville, Florida, and to be honest, some things changed, and it felt like it was going to slow down at first. But in reality, that was a year that my business kind of exploded. And the thing was, I viewed it as, and not to be insensitive or anything, but through studying, reading books, other stuff, you just learn that people who end up kind of successful, or businesses that end up successful, they tend to take times where other people view them negatively, or, they're just going to stay, for a better word, entrepreneurial-wise, like they're just going to stay in bed under the covers. It's your time to get up and take advantage. And so that's absolutely what we did, was just went full speed. I didn't miss one day of work. We had a massive office where 250 people work, and me and one other person were there every single day with the lights on throughout the whole process. We had like a no shoes policy, of course, but you know what I mean? That was it. And to be honest, then, through good fortune, or just decision making, I placed myself here in Jacksonville, and Florida became one of those kind of places. So as people say, like, oh, things back to normal, it's like we've been back to normal since probably July 2020 here. So nothing really changed as much. The market's been crazy just because people have been moving here. So again, it helped us kind of take more market share and build experience throughout the process. But speaking in terms of today, what it did was lay down the groundwork. And I read in these news articles that, realtors are going back to their other jobs because the market is tough, or high interest rates are forcing, people out of the business or the industry. And for us, we've maintained our business to this day. So that's maybe the best answer to that question.
Yeah, that's excellent. So let me ask you this. What was your dream when you were younger? What did you want to grow up and become?
That's crazy. This might be the hardest question to answer. I don't really know. I don't know that I wanted to do anything, if that makes sense. So I wanted to just do something that allowed me to do that, to maybe do whatever I wanted. I've done a few different career stuff along the way to learn, but everybody wants to be a pro baseball player or something, but by 10th grade and you're on JV, you realize you're not making it to the MLB. So that's out of the question. But really something in housing, to be honest, real estate involved. I kind of flirted with architecture and design. I've always really liked that side of the business. I just didn't really have the patience for the school, I guess. So
let's kind of preen back some of the layers of you to figure out how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, sure.
Talk to me a little bit about growing up, kind of where you were born and raised, and what were some of these seeds that were planted in you that had you get into real estate and sales, and the way that you've become in your career up to this point?
Yeah, that's a great question too, and it does really establish that. Very entrepreneurial. My dad is a pastor, actually. So we were at church, so we were always there. And in some regards, that requires a level of customer service, right? He's a leader, he's a public speaker, and then he's also doing the counseling side of it. So I'm just kind of looking through the window, observing that, and at the same time, to actually support our family, because there's not a lot of income there, we actually owned a flower shop. So we owned a flower shop, and so I kind of had free reign of the grounds, both behind the scenes and in front of it. I'd ride in the delivery van with my grandpas. They were both involved, delivering flowers and, playing in the cooler. That was crazy, getting locked in there and all kinds of weird adventures. But what that did, I guess none of my influences were a normal 9 to 5. They were very flowing time schedules. Everybody was in charge of their own schedule. Of course, in charge in the entrepreneur world is something. It depends on how much income you want to generate, right? You're in charge of that schedule, but you're basically setting a time for, creation and a time for customer service and a time for, study, that kind of thing. So those were the early influences, definitely. My grandpa Orvis had the Sportsman's Marina and Lodge. I always go back to that because I didn't really go to daycare. I spent time with my grandparents. So if we weren't out delivering flowers for the shop, then we were on his property, and that's kind of real estate development type, right? It's a marina and a lodge, and so I learned some lessons there. And then we branched off all kinds of side jobs to doing soda machines, collecting the coins, paper routes with my sister, to, I think at one point we were like managing a laundromat even. So just that's commercial side of business. So all those things mixed together kind of led me on the path towards real estate, just being the main thing for me.
Who's been a hero for you in your life? Who's consistently been a role model?
Consistent role model. This is a deep question, and I could answer that on many different levels, but it goes back to my grandpas for sure. Anybody who's spent a lot of time around me, they'll hear me talk about them. Definitely my dad. He would say, one of my favorite quotes from my dad was, when I'm afraid, then you can be afraid. And I tell people I never really saw my dad be afraid. So whether he was just good at masking it in front of his children, all it did was train me that, like, now I've kind of been empowered to go out into the world and live without fear. And that's been proven in some of the jobs and the challenges I've taken on. So definitely these men, these like father figures in my life are huge heroes to me. And then I had a few friends who their dads I spent a lot of time with. So I typically keep a circle of 3 or 4 men at an older age than me that are, when you're younger, it just happens naturally. And as you get older, now I'm reflecting on, okay, this happened. And so now I kind of seek those guys out or seek to understand, you know what I mean? Maybe find somebody to influence me in that way.
So if you could meet anybody alive on the planet right now, who would it be? Who would you love to talk to?
If I could meet anybody alive on the planet, man, that's a tough question. It would probably be, who, this is going to be really far out there, but music-wise, I like Keith Richards. I'd like to have a conversation with him. And the reason, I guess, is not so much the music. There's other musicians that I prefer their music style at a higher level. I play guitar too, so I'm into that world a little bit. But I think I think he's one of the guys that has the secret of life. He seems to always be happy. He's influential. He's like 120 years old, right? And he doesn't exactly live like the cleanest life. So I feel like there's a level of like emotional and spiritual stress that he allows into his life that generates like a long life. And I'd love to have that conversation.
Yeah, he has a biography that I read probably about 6-7 years ago. It's pretty fascinating to really get into how things kind of unfolded for him. He's a fascinating creature for sure.
That's awesome. I didn't know he had a biography, but I'll have to post it to the list and maybe check it out.
Yeah, totally. So, we all go through these things in our lives. We go through all of these different trials and successes and failures. but we gain wisdom over the time that we do that. If you have a dream tonight, run into your younger version, and you could give that version of you a piece of advice based on what you've learned in your life, what would you tell your young version?
Oh, wow. If I could tell the younger version of myself anything, it would probably be just to, enjoy the moment and slow down.
So that's the one thing I think that's been key about this COVID time that I've heard from a lot of people is that, and I experienced it too, the earth kind of settled, everything did slow down, and I think there's a part of that maybe people are holding on to a little longer now than they ever did before.
Right, and when I was younger trying to grow up, I always wanted to grow up, and I kind of lived like I was grown up. And sometimes there's nothing wrong with, being mature at a young age, but, I was quick to rush out and leave the house and go to school and get an apartment and do all this and almost live life as a checklist. Hey, I did this, I finished this class, check it off. Next is get this job, check, finish this apartment, check it off. And without really enjoying it. And I made plenty of mistakes, and I guess that, if we look at it through the lens of we're only a culmination of every event and influence in our life, and that's where we are today, I'm in a really good place today. So I don't know that we would, maybe from the sidelines, I would whisper it to myself, but knowing how, where I am today, I don't want to change too much.
So every day we wake up, we have motivators. We have things that get us to that place that we want to be. What's the motivator for you? What gets you up and gets you through your day? Okay,
so I talk a lot about kind of breaking a mold, this middle class mold that I have, and what it is to me is that I see from generation to generation, we get kicked out into the world at 18 at level 0, and we go through our life and we level up, and if we have children, we pour into them, but only enough to kick them out at 18 at level 0 and say, okay, good luck, let's see how you do. I don't want to push my kids out into the world at 0. And it's not that I want to spoil them or give them everything, because sometimes that's what the critic will say when you make this claim, but what I want to be able to do is pass the baton to them. And it's really hard. It's really hard to break the cycle where in a family it's been generation after generation. I'm sure many people in America or many people along the world struggle with this. When it's generation after generation after generation that I grew, I pushed my kids out at 0, they grew, they pushed their kids out at 0, right? To break that cycle and be okay, well, my kids aren't starting at 0, it's going to be a baton. It's you almost have to do extra work. My kids and my grandkids, hopefully, are just they're going to reap the benefits of what we're doing today, and that gets me going every day. That's why I kind of do what I do, because I have enough. I have everything I need. I could put my life on cruise control from this point forward. Our business would do enough. I have a house, so we have investments, all this, and we could just coast. But the only reason I keep doing more is for them. And the second side of that is a little bit for myself, because I've seen people, just like I mentioned, my grandparents and stuff, they never really were fully retired, and I don't know that my parents they're semi-retired. They still have to kind of generate some income. My wife and me, we're working for ourselves at 65. So we're kind of taking from those life lessons, and I don't even want to call them mistakes, because everybody's raised. And when I look at where my parents have come from, they've done very well within one generation to achieve as much as they have. So it's no fault to them. It's just us learning, as a household, as a family together. But, we work for ourselves at 65. I have everything I want today, but does 65-year-old Nate have the capability to just do whatever he wants? And when I think about that, I'm not yet. So I've got to get up and earn it.
So what's been one of the best fan letters you've ever gotten from somebody, best response from a client?
The best response from a client?
Yeah.
Man, just people when they really, for me, it does it when people just really appreciate the service, when they really can see the value and the intangible. So our industry is very service-based. It's not necessarily like a product they can reach out and touch. So your level of communication, your customer service, how well you handle, financial conversations is all part of the skill set. And then that becomes what they grade you on. So when they're able to say, hey, I am a person who generally is nervous, generally has to stay on top of things. Throughout this transaction, though, Nate got it done, and I was like sleeping easy at night. That's the best thing they can say.
So what's been the one thing that you've done in your life that you're the proudest of?
The thing in my life that I'm the proudest of, man, you're just bringing out the toughest questions today. I like it. I like these questions are challenging. And when you have these interviews, as you do one, you do multiple of them. You don't want to give the same answers, and your questions are different than a lot of questions. So I got to give you credit to that first, because these are really getting us to think outside the box, and I enjoy it. The thing I'm kind of the proudest of, probably, we've got 3 kids, and we work really hard. I guess I'm proud that we do a lot of self-reflecting. Every day, I kind of follow that. Let's get 1% better. Let's look at every situation, and you have to be careful when you have this personality, because you can critique everything, and sometimes that can come across like you're harsh or a perfectionist, and not a perfectionist, because we start a lot of projects ugly, as they say, we just jump in and go, and consistency is more important to me. But the fact that every time we work with our kids, we say, hey man, was I too rough, or was I too easy, or this, and how do we get better next time? And that takes a lot. And so to choose to do that and to consistently do it, and now when we look back already, we have an 8-year-old and a 3 and a 2-year-old, and we're guiding them through life, teaching them how to be great humans. And so far, so good there. I know we got a lot of ways to go, but definitely proud of that. Definitely proud of our kids.
So everyone out there has a perception of you, your family, your friends, your clients, colleagues, but ultimately you're in control of your existence. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Who do I think I am? I think that I am 100% a guy, and I am the leader of the house, but everybody in my house is equal to me at the same time. As much as I want to be chill, I am high level and full speed, and I've got a lot of highs and a lot of downs, but generally, to sum it all up, I'm a really chill guy, but I like things pro. And if they're not pro, it could set me off. But once we get it centered, we're back to chill.
Right on, man. Hey, Nate, before we get out this proverbial digital door here, I want to make sure everyone out there that wants to either hire you, learn more about you, anything pertaining to your world, where's the best place for them to go?
Yeah, best place, NateRiggsOfficial.com. Up at the top of the page, there's like a social icon, links to my Instagram, Facebook, my YouTube channel. It's all right there, so it's super easy. There's even contact forms, so if you want to do something, and I think it's got links to my calendar, you can schedule a call. So NateRiggsOfficial.com, that's the easiest way to get in touch with me.
Nate Riggs, great work, man. Thank you for opening up, giving me your story. Good luck with everything. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much. Good to chat with you.
Thanks for tuning in to another famous interview with Joe Dimino, where we cover the world of art, literature, business, spirituality, music, and more from around the globe. If you want to hear more interviews, visit the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino channel on YouTube. Find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.